Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Fusion Station. I hope you all are doing great. Okay, let's start this video. In this video, we will cover the administration part of Sophos Firewall, and in the last video, we just covered the overview of Sophos Firewall, where we discuss about the control center. If you have not watched my previous video yet, so I will provide you the link in the video description. So just refer to that link and just go through that video what we discussed so that you will get the idea. So let's start this video. Today we will just discuss about the administration part of Sophos Firewall. Let's say if you are a beginner and managing this firewall for the first time, then you maybe notice that you are accessing the firewall using the default IP address, that is 172.16.16.16 on port number 4444. You can access the administration settings by navigating to a system section where you will get the option of administration. Just click on it. Once you will open this device access settings, the first section you will get is local service ACL, where you will get various kinds of services that is being managed by the firewall. And in the left hand side, you will get the zone section, and on the right hand side you will see all the services. So all the services which are showing as checked mark is showing enabled for that particular zone. So in this case we are managing our firewall from the local network, and for the local zone we can see that all these checked mark services are accessible from our LAN side. And if we talk about the WAN zone, the ping, SSL VPN and the VPN portal services are enabled. So what does it mean? All these services are accessible from the outside network. There is another zone, Wi-Fi, where all these services are enabled by default. If you are managing the firewall from the local network, you maybe notice that you are accessing it from the web console. So the reason is that by default HTTPS service is enabled for the LAN zone. That is why you are able to access it from the local network. And same applies for SSH. If you are accessing this firewall from the local network using SSH service, then you would be able to access it via the CLI. Similarly, various services are enabled for the LAN zone, like the VPN portal, ping service, right? So these kinds of services you can access it from the LAN network. The next thing is that as an administrator, we need to secure our firewall and we do not want to give the unauthorized access to the outside network. So make sure you have disabled all the unnecessary services which you do not need to access it from the outside network, and all those services should be in the unchecked state so that no unauthorized person should access this firewall from the outside network. So we are accessing this firewall using the web console. So in this case we can see that HTTPS and SSH services are unchecked for the WAN zone, so it means that no one can access it from the outside network. But there are some scenarios where we need to give the access to some admins who are working remotely. So in that case, we can define their public IP address using the local ACL. So the next part is local service ACL exception. And in case if you want to access the firewall from the outside network, you can define their public IP address here so that only that particular public IP can access this firewall from the outside network. So in this case, you can see that I have specified this local service ACL exception rule for this particular destination IP who want to access this firewall from the outside network. In this rule, you can see that I have defined the outside IP address 192.168.29.239. This is the source IP address who want to access this firewall, and from where the user is trying to access this firewall, he is accessing from the WAN zone. So we need to define the source zone as WAN, and here we need to define the source IP. The destination you can define it any, and this part is all about the services section. What service this IP address can access it on this firewall. So we have defined all these services: HTTPS, IPsec, ping, SNMP, SSH. So it's all up to you what service are required and what you want to allow to outside network. So those services you can define it under the services section. then just define the action as accept, then click save. After saving this ACL rule, then that particular source IP would be able to access this firewall from the outside network. And one more important point is, if you try to enable this option for the WAN zone, for example, if you are accessing this firewall from the outside network using the web console, then the firewall will not allow you to enable it for the HTTPS service. In the previous version, like in version 18 or 19, you may be able to check this option for the WAN zone, but in 19.5 or in version 20, this option has been restricted specifically for the WAN zone. So you will have to create a ACL exception rule for the public IP address to whom you want to give the access. So this option will secure the admin or user who is managing this firewall and will protect them to accidentally enabling this option for the WAN zone. In this case, you can see that I am accessing this firewall from the outside network, and the public IP address of this firewall is 29.187, as you can see, and I can also demonstrate you that as well. Here we can see that our port B is defined under the WAN zone and its IP address is 192.168.29.187. The same IP address has been defined for the WAN zone, and we are using the same to access it from the outside network. And I'm able to access it from the outside network using this IP just because of this ACL exception rule that I have created and defined the HTTPS service for this particular source IP. So whenever the request will come from this 29.239 IP, then he would be able to access the 29.187, which is the firewall WAN interface IP, and firewall rule will check that whether HTTPS service is defined for this ACL exception rule or not. Yes, it is already defined, and that is the reason we are able to access it from the outside network. The next part is default admin password setting. So by default, the firewall comes with the credentials, username as admin, and the password is also admin. And once you have configured this firewall, then after you can change the password from this section, default admin's password setting. Next option is multi-factor authentication for the default admin. So currently we are accessing this firewall using the username admin and the password. But if you want to enable the multi-factor authentication for the admin user, then you can enable this from here, where you will have to define the username plus the OTP code. So if your requirement is to implement the two-factor authentication for the admin user, then just enable this MFA for the admin. And once this is enabled, then you will get the option to scan the QR code so that you can generate the OTP code on your application and define it along with the password. Then after, you will be able to log in using the MFA. So these are the main settings of device access. The next part is admin and user settings. In this section, the first option comes here is host name. We can define any host name to this firewall, and for the time being, I have defined this as test lab, but you can define any name like security.abc.com, whatever the name you want to provide, you can define it over here. And you can also mention the description under the host name. Once the host name is defined, just click apply. Okay, the next option is admin console and end user interaction. So this section basically cover all the ports that we are using to access our web console, VPN portal and the user portal. So these are the default ports that have been defined on this firewall, and yes, they all these ports are customizable and you can configure it as per your requirement. So currently we are accessing this firewall using the web console on port number 4444, as you can see in the URL bar, and same thing applies for the user portal and the VPN portal. So these are the default ports which is being used by user portal and the captive portal. Currently I'm demonstrating you all these settings on firmware version 20.0.2, but if you are working on firmware version 19, 19.5 or earlier versions, you maybe notice that the port number may not be the same because in those firmware versions there is no option for the VPN portal. So basically this VPN portal has been introduced in version 20, and from version 20 onwards you will get these new port numbers. In the older firmware versions like 18.5, 19, 19.5, in all these firmware versions you may note that the default admin port is 4444 and the user portal is 443. The next option here is certificate. So whenever you are accessing this firewall for the first time, like if you are managing it for the first time, you maybe notice that while accessing the firewall from the web console, you may get the certificate warning. The reason of that certificate warning is due to having no firewall certificate in our browser. That is why the browser reflects the certificate error message, and that is the different concept that I will cover in the coming videos. But this is the option where we need to upload the certificate so that you will not get that certificate warning in the browser while accessing this firewall from the web console. Next option is about redirecting users to the captive portal or other interactive pages. So basically this section defines how do you want to access the firewall, whether you want to configure it or accessing it using the host name or the interface IP or the different host name. So once you have done all the configuration as per your requirement, just click apply so that your new configuration would be implemented and will be ready to use. Next part is login security. In the login security, the first point is log out admin session after this particular minutes of inactivity. So for example, if you are working on firewall and the firewall sense that there is no activity as per the defined period, so that it will automatically log out the admin session. Next point is block login. For example, if someone or unauthorized person is trying to access the firewall from the same IP address within this particular time frame, 60 seconds, then firewall will block the request for this particular periods of time. As per this configuration, if someone tried to access the firewall and all those hits were considered as unsuccessful attempts within the frame of 60 seconds, then firewall will block the login access from that IP for the next 5 minutes. Then after it shows administrator password complexity settings. So if you are defining the password for the user admin, then this is the password complexity setting that should be matched while creating or defining a new password. If it is not being matched as per this password complexity settings, you may not be able to create or update the password. And same thing applies for the user password complexity settings. If you are creating a new user and for that user, if the password is not being matched as per the user password complexity settings, then the user will not be able to create the password. And if its password complexity criteria does not match, then user will immediately get the prompt that this particular point is missing or not filled as per the password complexity settings. Next thing is login disclaimer settings. In this section, if you want to get a login disclaimer that you want to show while logging to the firewall, so this is the option from where you can enable this option and demonstrate to the user who are accessing this firewall. And in most of the organizations, this disclaimer would be displayed if you are accessing their network devices like routers, switches, or firewalls. So basically, here is the option from where you can enable it. And I can also demonstrate you how does it look like. Here we can see that after logging to the firewall, we just got the first page as a login disclaimer. So once you get this login disclaimer page, just accept it, then it will redirect you to the firewall web console. And this login disclaimer is customizable. You can configure or define the message as per your requirement, and the same message would be reflected if any user or admin try to access this firewall from the local or the outside network. Next option is Sophos Adaptive Learning. In this part allows the firewall to send the data for the diagnosis purposes. And if you will check this option like send app and threat data and the advanced security telemetry, it will collect some information about the firewall like the device model number, serial number, the firmware version that is being used, any threat which is detected by the firewall, or any malicious URL which found in the emails, or any other malicious content that found while scanning the traffic. So all that data would be sent using this Sophos adapter learn. Next option is Sophos Assistant. So currently this option is disabled and you may have seen this option while accessing your firewall using the GUI. So currently this option is in the disabled state. Let me turn it on and demonstrate you. Here I have enabled this Sophos Assistant. So once you uncheck or check this Sophos Assistant option, you will have to log out from the firewall. Here you can see that after enabling this Sophos Assistant option and logging out from the firewall, we just logged in back and here we got this option of Sophos Assistant. So basically this Sophos Assistant will help you to configure the required settings. For example, you want to create a firewall rule and you are a beginner and you need some assistance how to create a firewall rule. So with the help of the Sophos Assistant, it will guide you step by step how to configure, and similarly you will get other options for different configuration and settings. Like if you want to configure route based IPsec VPN, then regarding the same you will get all the options. You can explore all these settings by accessing this firewall so that you will get the idea how to use it. And this Sophos Assistant is movable and as per your requirement or convenience. So you can shift it anywhere while accessing this web console. Next part is time. If you want to do modification in the time setting, so this is the section where you can do it. And currently you will get the option of current time and the time zone. So if you found that your firewall's time is not correctly configured, then you can just configure it from here by selecting the correct time zone. And if you are using a custom NTP server in your network, then just select that NTP server option and define your NTP server IP address and then sync now. And another option you will get here is use the predefined NTP server, or if you do not want to use this NTP server option and want to configure the time manually, just select do not use NTP server and select the date from here and the time as per your time zone. This time settings plays a vital role because if you will do license synchronization and your firewall's time is showing incorrect or not configured as per your time zone, so license synchronization may some issue and it may be not synchronized properly or will give you some errors. So make sure the time should be correct so that it should not give you any errors related to the license synchronization. Next part is notification settings. If you want to use email notification, so you can use the built-in email server, and if you have your own email server, just select that external email server and define the settings of your email server. And in the email settings you can define the from email address and send notification email address. Once all these settings are configured, just click test email so that the firewall will send the email to your defined email address, and once the email was received successfully, it means that your mail server settings are configured correctly to receive the emails notifications. Our next part is SNMP that I will cover in the upcoming videos. The next option is NetFlow. If you are using any NetFlow server, you can define the server name and IP address over here and just click apply. Then after, the last section we have is about messages, where you can define the message for the particular modules like authentication, SMTP or administration. Recently we configured the banner settings. So whatever the settings it has defined in the banner, that message would be displayed over here. So it is customizable. You can just simply edit this option and define your own message and click apply. Once it is applied, the same message would reflect while accessing the firewall using the web console. Alright, so this was all about firewall administration. I hope you found this video helpful. And if you have any doubt in this regard, just drop a comment. I will definitely answer all of your queries. And please stay tuned for all the upcoming videos so that you will get the informative content regarding this Sophos firewall. Until then, take care of self. Have a great day. Goodbye.